look, you can have chronic illness, you can have diabetes, you can have high blood pressure, but you're not necessarily frail. And you can be frail with no diseases. And like I show my students all the time, these people come in and they have completely normal blood work, completely normal scans. When I ask my students, how do they look? They say, they look terrible. You know, they look weak and tired and sick, you know. They, well, that's frailty. So our concept of frailty is not in line with our traditional kind of thinking of medicine. John Glenn, not frail. Right? He went up in the spaceship. He was well into his 70s. The Queen Mother wasn't frail. She broke a hip when she was in her late 90s or so, but she did fairly well. I don't think he's frail. Probably not. Maybe a little bit Meshuggah, but not frail. So frailty is an emerging concept. The body is a very complicated organism, has a lot of what we call redundancy and backup systems into it. And we're not really sure what makes people frail. Some of the criteria that we use is sort of unexplained weight loss. Again, people come in and have no signs of disease, no cancer, no diabetes, but they're losing weight, they're tired, they're weak, they can't walk. They can't make it through the day. When we sort of objectively measure what we call grip strength, when we have objective ways of sort of doing this, they're weak. They're weak. And again, frailty is not good. You fall down, you become disabled. And frail people die. Frail people die. So on the top you can see if you're not frail, 8 years later you're still pretty much okay, but the more frail you become by any kind of criteria, it's a bad prognosis. By the way, obese people can be frail too. Right? Obese people can be frail too, because they're weak. When you start to measure their muscle strength, they could be obese, but they're weak, they're frail. And this is becoming such an important issue that there are studies going on now in Canada to look at this. Now, UB Blake said, I'm not going to live so long, I'm taking better care of myself. Exercise. Now, this was our, remember Vic Tanny's? Remember you used to go to Vic Tanny's? Remember Vic Tanny's? Put a belt around you and you would shake a little bit and have a glass of tea, you know, and then that was considered exercise. Yeah. Well, our ideas of exercise has changed now, eh? Very interesting, and there's lots of studies, and we could talk about this for days, literally. But say we look at men, we look at people sprinting, you know, short distances. And you see on the bottom 50, 55, 60, 65, 70, that's the age, all right? So you can see between age 50 to about 75, the time to do a sprint doesn't really change that much. Doesn't really change that much. Only after 75, 80 or so does the time go up. You know, if you pay attention to it, if you do regular exercise, you don't just sort of sit around. And the same thing for endurance, endurance running, excuse me. You see 1,500 meters, 5,000 meters, even 10,000 meters. Between the ages of 50 and 70ish or so, you see it's kind of flat. Eh? The times are the same. Over above age 75, you can lose it. That's remarkable, right? That's remarkable. And for women, it's similar numbers. Also, maybe a few years earlier, maybe because women tend to have less muscle mass to start off than men. And leg strength is very, very important. You know, when I watch people get out of cars and I watch people cross the street. You know, and I see how long it takes people to cross the street. And you know, some municipalities, you know, they increase the time before the light changes color, because it takes people half an hour to go from here to there. But this is not good. And so in one study they asked 3,000 people who said, I'm healthy, I'm fine. I'm fine. Asked them to walk a quarter mile at 3 miles per hour. That's 3.0 on the treadmill. That's very, very slow. 13% of people who said, I'm healthy, I'm fine, they couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. And again, they're able to correlate this with your speed, your walking speed, and your chances of getting sick and dying, and it's very, very closely related. So again, these are not traditional things that I was taught in medical school. You know, that we take a stopwatch, watch how long it takes people to go back and forth. So we're moving into different sort of ways of medical assessment. You know what this is called? This is called the special, right? This is the special. This is the smoked meat, the French fries, a little bit of coleslaw, pickles, you know, and a cherry Coke. I didn't see the cherry Coke. You know why we eat this? Why do we eat this? It tastes good. It's not such a complicated question. You know why we don't eat this? It doesn't taste good. Yeah, it's not a complicated question. So Jack LaLanne, still works out 2 hours per day, weights, swimming, walking, a little bit narcissistic maybe, a little bit too much into himself. But he said, if man made it, don't eat it. And if it tastes good, spit it out right away. This is actually a very interesting book written by Michael Pollan. He writes a lot in the New York Times. By the way, excellent blog to read is on the New York Times webpage. Go to the science and enter aging. You have a tremendous series of articles on aging, well aging. And he writes in there too, Jane Brody, if you read the New York Times, terrific articles. So basically what Michael Pollan says and many other people say, eat food. Eat something that looks like real food that your grandmother would have served you. Stay away from this highly processed stuff, the stuff they show you now, and you get that, for $2.99, a double bacon cheeseburger with 4 slices of cheese and all this, and not kosher, you shouldn't eat it anyways. But, that is not food. That is highly processed stuff, that's not food. And again, I told you, eat less, eat a little bit less. Again, there's very few large, older people. They tend to be smaller framed and lean. And you have to eat a little bit more green stuff. Things with colors. Stay away from things that are white. Eat things that are colored. They're very interesting book. Actually, most of what we eat is corn-based. Corn-based. Because the U.S. government has given tremendous subsidies to farmers to raise corn, and the cows are fed corn. And the chickens are fed corn. Everything is coming from corn. It's very important to stay connected. It's hard. It's hard. You lose a spouse. You lose some mobility. You lose vision. It's winter. It's cold. It's hard. It's hard. But it's very important to maintain connections with people. Very important to have a meaning in life. Viktor Frankl. Everybody read Viktor Frankl? Yes. Man's Search for Meaning. Yes. So Viktor Frankl passed away a few years ago. Was a psychiatrist, and he survived Auschwitz. And he asked himself, how could anybody survive Auschwitz? How could you not just throw yourself on the barbed wire or be begged to be shot? How could anybody survive such a place? And what he found, and again, I don't want to make an analogy between aging and Auschwitz, God forbid, but the people who survived had a meaning in their life. People would say, well, for me, I don't care. I could die tomorrow. But you know what? This poor guy next to me, I have to help him. I have to make sure he gets a bowl of soup, a piece of bread. And we hear very similar sort of stories. People say, look, I'm realistic. I know for me, I'm sick, I'm this and that. But you know what? My children need me still this and that. And it gives them reason to continue. It gives them reason to continue. Time is moving again. People are looking at the very old people, the 100-year-olds. Back to the New England centenarian study. You look at 100-year-olds. Only 20% have nothing the matter with them. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. Their minds are fine. They don't take a pill. 40% are what Dr. Pearls says are delayers. They have some things that have happened to them, but usually late in life, over age 85. And about another third to 40% are what he calls survivors. They've gotten all sorts of diseases, but also a little bit later in life, usually 65, 70, 75. And this is what he's found so far in the centenarians. Again, he also notes very few are heavy, very few smoke, most are coping well with stress, most are cognitively intact.